In this video, we're going to be tying one of my new flies called the Jiggy Common Craw. First thing we're going to do is start off with the Hanak competition hook, the H480BL jig hook in a size 6, and we're going to put on a 3/16 inch tungsten slotted bead in black. And I'm just using some brown 8/0 thread. Anything will really work. You can use olive as well. Then I'm going to take my first material here, which is just some Grizzly olive Chickabou or mini Marabou. Any little tuft of Marabou that has that kind of grizzly look to it will do the trick. We're going to tie this little tuft in. I like to take 3 pieces, just kind of blend them together. We're going to tie this in so that it's about the length of the shank of the entire hook. And I just tie it in with a couple nice tight wraps all the way back to the bend. And we can just trim it out of there. No need to make it look super clean or fancy at this point. Now I'm going to tie in the belly material. So this hook, of course, is a jig hook, so it's going to ride upside down, hook point up. So this is going to be the bottom, which is the top of the hook, but it's essentially going to be the bottom of the fly. So for this, I'm going to tie in some furry foam. Now I have 2 pieces already pre-cut here, one in moss green, one in light olive. Now you can see that the moss green color is thicker than the light olive color. I'd say the moss green is wider than the gap of the hook. Now this will be important when we tie in basically the legs, because this bottom part needs to act as a larger wedge to kick those legs up a little bit higher than the top half. That way it doesn't smush them the wrong way. You'll kind of see what I'm talking about as soon as we tie in the legs. So I'm going to take this piece of moss, the larger color, and tie it in right on top of the shank of the hook, which will be the underside of the fly. Just make sure it's secure. Then when you have that all done, we're just going to take our hook and flip it upside down on our vise. This just makes things a little bit easier. Then we're going to take that light olive strip and we're going to work our thread here all the way back to the back. And we're going to sneak in and just capture that light olive strip, making sure that it's nice and centered on the hook. There we are. And we can just kind of build up a little quick smooth thread base, transitioning from all that foam. And I'll take my thread back up to all that foam. We're ready for the legs or also body material. For that I'm going to use a piece of pine squirrel in a rust color. I'm going to trim it and tie it in so that the fibers, all these pieces seem to be different, but you can see this one, see how those fibers are kind of going down on the strip? So I want to tie that in so that all those fibers face backwards on the fly. And that way when I palmer it, they all face rearward and lay down nice. If I basically tied it in like that, then they'd all face forward and it wouldn't really give me the look that I'm looking for. So just either way, you can tie it in on the tip or the butt, depending on which way those fibers are facing when they skin the squirrel. So for this one, we're going to tie it in at the tip, because that is the way that the fibers are facing rearward. And we're just going to sneak in here and just grab the piece of leather there. Then we're going to take that squirrel, I'm going to palmer it with each wrap, letting the material kind of swoop back onto the shank of the hook. Make sure your bead slot, there we go, is nice and seated in the right position. There we go. Then we can capture that squirrel with a couple tight wraps of thread. I sneak a few in behind it, and we can trim it out of there. This is a really good fly for not only jigging and stripping, but also dead drifting. So don't be afraid to dead drift this fly either. So now you can do either piece first, the top half or the bottom half. I like to usually do the bottom half first, and I like to flip the fly. It just gives me a little more control. Then we're going to take these fibers and we're going to split them right down the middle. A little trick is use a little wax or a little bit of saliva to kind of manipulate those fibers right down the middle, just like that. Then we're ready to take that furry foam and we're just going to pull it right over the top. Again, you can wet your fingers, kind of get all that stuff to lay back. And we're going to just take a tight wrap of thread, second tight wrap, and then one in front of it. Then you can flip your fly again. Same thing here. Split both fibers to each side down the middle. You can use a little brush if you have one. I usually just manually do it. And same thing, just take that furry foam and split it down the middle. Sometimes you have some fibers that get trapped. You can just move them with your scissors or a bodkin. There we go. And capture it. And what I've essentially done is wedged that pine squirrel in between the two pieces of furry foam. And just to finish, you can just nice tightly placed wraps. Try not to trap any of the squirrel if you can get away from it. Then I jump my thread in front of the furry foam. Then I find my whip finish here and I just whip finish right behind all that junk. Pull it tight. Trim out your thread. Now when I trim the furry foam, I like to not trim it too tight. So I just give it a slight tug. I lay my scissor right down against the base and trim. What that does is it kind of hides some of our thread wraps and some of our work, if you can tell there. Then I do the same on the back. Here, I'll flip it over for you. Just take my scissors, lay it up against the back. Then you can kind of rub it and rough it up, and it kind of helps it blend together. If you have any tag ends, you can just trim them out with your scissor. Any sharp edges, but that's just getting picky. I mean, honestly, the fish, I don't think, really care that much. And then lastly, since this is a streamer, I like them to be durable. So I just take a little bit of glue. My glue's a little hard here. Let's see if it's any good. Yep, still good. Just the cap was glued on there. Drop a little bit on each side. And that fly is essentially good to go. Now this fly I kind of originally started to develop for carp, but it has kind of translated into a really good trout fly as well. It looks like a crayfish, looks like a sculpin, looks like a minnow. It just looks like a tasty little treat to just about anything that swims. Great little fly. I'm calling that the Jiggy Common Craw.